There's a huge revolution happening where AI meets biology, and it's coming from the very same team that brought us AlphaFold. But this time, DeepMind is aiming for something way bigger than just proteins. They are going after the entire functional landscape of the human genome with a new system they're calling AlphaGenome. And this is a story about finally unlocking the secrets that have been hiding in the 98% of our DNA we used to just call junk. So let's dive in. To really get your head around how big a deal this is, you have to start with this fundamental problem we've had for decades. See, our genome is about 3 billion letters long. But the weird thing is, most of it doesn't directly make proteins. These huge, vast stretches of DNA, people call it the dark matter of our genome. That's been the really hard part. It's where the clues to countless diseases are buried. But for the longest time, we just haven't been able to read them. And this scale of what we don't know here, it's just staggering. I mean, think about this. Over 98% of all the genetic variations that make each of us unique and, can also lead to diseases like cancer or autoimmune disorders, they're all found in these mysterious non-coding regions. So when a mutation pops up here, scientists have often had to just throw up their hands and say, we're not really sure what this does. Well, AlphaGenome was built to change that answer. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to start in our DNA's dark matter, and then we'll meet this new decoder, AlphaGenome. We'll look at how it can read 1 million letters of DNA at once, why it's called a unified model for the genome, and then see how it's already unlocking real insights into diseases. And finally, we'll ask the big question, is this the beginning of a whole new revolution in biology? So for decades, this has been the central challenge, right? The vast majority of our DNA, it acts like this incredibly complex switchboard, constantly turning genes on and off. But trying to figure out how one tiny mutation in that enormous non-coding space affects the whole system, it's been like trying to find one single faulty wire in an entire city's power grid. It's just been incredibly, incredibly difficult and slow. And this is exactly where AlphaGenome steps in. It's an AI system designed specifically to make sense of these mysterious regions. The goal isn't just to read the DNA sequence. It's to predict the consequences of that code, which genes are going to turn on, which ones will stay quiet, and how the whole thing is wired together in 3 dimensions. But to make these kinds of incredible predictions, AlphaGenome first had to solve a really fundamental problem that has stumped genomic AI for years. Yeah, this slide shows the problem perfectly. You see, before AlphaGenome, AI models had this painful trade-off. They could either zoom way in on a tiny piece of DNA, maybe 10,000 letters, and get super high-res detail, or they could zoom way out to see the bigger picture, but then everything would become blurry and they lose all the important details. AlphaGenome basically said, nope, we're not going to choose. It reads a full 1 million DNA letters at once, while still making predictions right down to the level of a single letter. It's the best of both worlds. So how in the world does it do this? Well, the secret sauce is something called a hybrid AI architecture. The best way to think about it is like reading a book. One part of the AI is an expert at recognizing individual words. These are short DNA patterns where specific proteins bind. But the other part is built to understand the big picture, like how different chapters of the DNA book connect with each other to tell the complete story. And here's something that is absolutely crucial to get. Our DNA is not just a straight line. In reality, it's folded up into this incredibly intricate 3D shape, kind of like a massive tangled ball of yarn. And what that means is that a regulatory switch on what you'd think of as page 1 of the instruction book might actually need to physically touch a gene all the way over on page 50 for it to work. AlphaGenome is built to predict this complex 3D wiring diagram, figuring out which parts of the DNA, even if they're far apart in the sequence, are actually neighbors in 3D space. Now this is where it gets even more powerful. AlphaGenome wasn't trained to do just one specific biological task. Nope. It's a single, unified system that can predict many, many different biological outcomes, all from the exact same raw DNA input. It can actually predict the results of 11 different kinds of measurements. These are things that scientists would normally have to do in separate, really time-consuming lab experiments to figure out. So instead of building one AI model for one task, this is one single system that's learning the shared rules of the entire genome. And this is what makes it a true unified model. Just from one single DNA sequence, it predicts how active genes are, how tightly the DNA is packed, which regions are physically touching each other in 3D, and even how the genetic message gets edited before being read, a process called splicing, which is absolutely critical. This gives us a really comprehensive snapshot of what's happening inside a cell. Okay, so this predictive power is fascinating, right? But what does it actually do? I mean, so what? How can it help us understand human disease? Well, this is where we move from the theory to some really tangible results. And the performance is just remarkable. They put it through a whole series of 26 different benchmark tests, all designed to see how well it could predict the effects of mutations. And AlphaGenome either matched or beat the best available method in 25 of them. In the world of genomics, that kind of consistent top-tier performance is a very, very big deal. And in some areas, the improvements aren't just small, they're huge. Take RNA splicing. You can think of it like editing a movie script right before the actors are about to read their lines. If you cut in the wrong place, the whole story just falls apart. Well, lots of genetic diseases, things like cystic fibrosis, and even certain cancers, are caused by mutations that mess up this editing process. And AlphaGenome's ability to spot these errors is a massive leap forward. This case study just illustrates its power perfectly, so follow the steps here. In a type of leukemia, scientists knew that certain non-coding mutations were driving the cancer, but they didn't really get the why. AlphaGenome came in and predicted not just that the mutation was a problem, but precisely how it was doing its damage. It predicted the mutation created a brand new enhancer. You can think of that like a gas pedal for a gene that was abnormally flooring it for a cancer-causing gene called Cal1. This is the kind of deep insight that would normally take years and years of lab work to figure out. So, where do we go from here? When you put all of this together, the massive scale, the incredible accuracy, and the deep biological insight, it's really hard not to see this as a foundational step towards a whole new era in biology and medicine. And this quote from the researchers, it just gets right to the heart of it. AlphaGenome isn't just some pattern matching machine that's confirming what we already suspected. It's a discovery engine. It's resolving genetic mysteries that traditional methods just couldn't crack, and it's providing genuinely new biological insights. And that really leaves us with this profound final thought. For the first time, we actually have a tool that can begin to translate the entire instruction manual of human life, especially that 98% that we barely understood. So the question is no longer if we can read the code, but what incredible secrets are we going to uncover now that we've finally